As our movie begins, we see a glowing item inside a bathtub, and then we're introduced to one of our protagonists, Adam. And suddenly, Adam wakes up realizing that he is drowning. He pulls the plug and the floating object gets sucked in. And immediately, Adam jumps out of the bathtub and discovers that he's chained onto a post in a filthy toilet. And as Adam shouts for help, a second sound coming from the other side of the room tells him to calm down, and both of these men then realize that they are chained to a post on opposite sides of a dead body that looks like the consequence of self-deletion. Frightened and nauseous, Adam starts shouting for help and tugging on his chain. And Dr. Lawrence, our second protagonist, and the man chained on the opposite side of Adam, tells him that yelling is completely pointless because nobody's gonna hear him. And Lawrence asks Adam to calm down and inquires if he's been hurt, and he asks him for his name. Adam, still in shock and confused, is hesitant to reply to Lawrence. And despite Adam's reluctance, Lawrence informs him that he is a doctor and he woke up in the same condition as Adam did. And Lawrence starts questioning Adam on his connection to the body, and if he knows how he ended up in this situation. But Adam is still struggling to break free from the chain and tells Lawrence that he's completely clueless as to what's going on. After that, Lawrence tells Adams that the last thing he remembered was going back home from work and waking up in this filthy toilet. And as they stood over the body, Adam confesses that this was his first dead body and he'd never really seen one before. And with a sense of panic, he asks Lawrence to check if the organs have been removed. And Lawrence assures him that they are fine and asks for his name again. And feeling a bit calmer now, Adam tells Lawrence his name, and they both begin to contemplate why they were put in this room. And as they search their surroundings, they notice a brand new clock, indicating that their captor wants them to know the exact time. And Lawrence attempts to reach the door, while Adam searches his pockets for any clues, and in his back pocket, he finds a letter containing a tape that reads, "Play me." And as Lawrence searches his own pockets, he discovers a similar letter with an extra key and a single bullet. And despite their efforts, the key fails to unlock their chains. However, as they turn around, they notice a tape recorder being held by the dead man in the center of the room. And after several attempts, Adam identifies an object in the bathroom to anchor his shirt, allowing him to pull the tape recorder toward himself. And then, he inserts the tape and plays it, hoping to uncover some answers. And as the tape started playing, a voice addressed Adam with a message that could mean his death in the filthy toilet, and the voice briefly mentioned his past actions and called him pathetic. Confused by the message, Adam turned to Lawrence for an explanation, and Lawrence advised him to throw the tape recorder to him to listen to his own tape. And fearful of breaking the tape recorder while attempting to throw it, Adam requested that Lawrence throw him the tape that he found in his own pockets, and Lawrence complied and Adam played the tape for him. And the same voice from Adam's tape addressed Lawrence, calling the situation he found himself in a wake-up call and informing him that the aim of the game was to kill Adam, and he only had until 6 o'clock to do it. And both men looked up toward the clock, realizing they had around 7.5 hours left. The voice also reveals that the man who was dead in the middle of the room died because he shot himself to avoid the pain caused by poison in his system. And the voice told Lawrence that he had resources hidden inside the filthy room to help him with his task and instructed him to follow the treasure marked by an X. And finally, the voice threatened to kill Lawrence's wife and daughter, Allison and Diana, leaving him to rot in a room if he didn't comply with the kidnapper's wishes and kill Adam by 6 o'clock. It ended the message by saying, "Let the games begin." After rewinding the tape, Lawrence identifies a sound that said, "Follow your heart," and immediately notices a heart symbol on an out-of-use filthy toilet. And he asked Adam to throw him the tape recorder and instructed him to search the inside of the toilet. At first hesitant, Adam realizes the severity of the situation and he puts his hand inside the very disgusting toilet in search of clues, and he doesn't even find anything. Ugh, God, why did they have to make me see this? You guys owe me, okay? If there's anybody who didn't subscribe, I swear to God. Then Lawrence tells him to take off the lid, and as soon as he does, Adam finds a bag. After opening the bag, he finds 2 saws. He throws one of the saws to Lawrence, and both men start cutting their chains. But unfortunately, after trying for some time, Adam's saw breaks, and he gets angry and he throws it at the mirror, breaking the mirror. Both men give up and look exhausted. And then Lawrence figures out that the kidnapper doesn't want them to cut through the chains, but actually through their feet. He tells Adam that he might know about the individual that put them in this situation, and then we're taken to a separate scene as we discover the man who Lawrence thinks is the Jigsaw Killer. Yeah, that's what they call him, the Jigsaw Killer. we see 3 officers visit 2 crime scenes that introduce them to the gruesome killing methods that the Jigsaw Killer used to torture his victims and finally allow them to kill themselves. In the first scene, we see the victim by the name of Paul, who died due to severe blood loss, and this happened because he cut his femoral artery. Later, the detectives discover a tape that implied that Paul had previously tried to kill himself using a razor blade but was unsuccessful, and that's why Jigsaw decided to enter him in a cage full of razors and give him a limited amount of time to escape. The next scene takes us to our second victim, Mark, who pretended to be sick for work and was caught by Jigsaw and injected with an actual poison and covered in a flammable substance. And Jigsaw tells Mark that the only way he could escape was to find the combination on the wall using a candle as his only source of light. And eventually, as you've probably guessed, Mark burned himself to a crisp. And as the movie progresses, we see Dr. Lawrence in a hospital introducing his residents to a patient with a frontal tumor. However, Zepp Hindle, an orderly, interrupts him and corrects him on the patient's name, which is John. And before Dr. Lawrence could finish his briefing with the residents, he gets called into his office to be questioned by the detectives. And it turns out that he is now a suspect for the murder, as the detectives found a pen light with his fingerprints on it. Dr. Lawrence, then accompanied by his attorney, go to the station to speak with the detectives. And during the conversation, Dr. Lawrence reveals that he had a really good alibi. He was just having an affair. So he was pretty busy to commit the murder. And as the story progresses, we see Dr. Lawrence talking to Adam in the filthy toilet, explaining that his experience happened 5 months ago. And he tells Adam that during that time, he was told to hear a testimony from one of Jigsaw's survivors. And the survivor, Amanda, tells the detectives about her experience, and she reveals that Jigsaw had placed a reverse bear trap on her jaw, and the only way she could escape was to pry out the keys from the stomach of her dead cellmate. And after many hours of struggling, she sees the body, takes a knife, and as soon as she was about to cut the guy open, the guy wakes up. The man had been paralyzed with an injection, and Amanda had almost no time left. So she chose to stab the man to death, and she took out the keys from his intestines, and she freed herself of the deadly bear trap that was placed on her. And after successfully taking it off, a scary figure on a bike arrives and congratulates her for being alive. And Amanda then reveals to the detectives that she was a drug addict and that the experience had helped her to be better. The scene then takes us to present day, 5 months ahead of Dr. Lawrence's experience with these cases. We're back in a room where Adam and the doctor are detained, and Adam starts blaming Dr. Lawrence because he blames him for being put in this situation. And as Adam picks up a broken piece of a mirror and threatens Dr. Lawrence, he realizes that the mirror was actually a two-way mirror. And Adam breaks the remaining glass, and he discovers a camera behind it. And a man comes on a monitor, and he tells them, "I can see you, but you can't see me." The pair, realizing that they have less than 6 hours for their deadline, start looking for an X mark inside the room. And as they search, Dr. Lawrence starts reminiscing about his conversation with his wife and daughter, and he starts to regret how he handled it. And we discover later that Diana, Lawrence's daughter, had actually seen a man in her closet, which Dr. Lawrence ignored. Back in the room, Dr. Lawrence reaches in his pocket and fetches his wallet to show pictures of his wife and daughter. And Adam takes out one picture and finds another image of Lawrence's wife and daughter, and on this one, it's clear that they're taken hostage. And on the back it reads, "X marks the spot. Sometimes you see more with your eyes shut." Adam decides to hide the image and stay silent, and back at Dr. Lawrence's house, Jigsaw had taken Allison and Diana hostage. He measures both their heart rates, and then he starts peeping through the window. And at this point, we discover that Detective Tapp had been observing over the Jigsaw Killer, and we see him observing Dr. Lawrence's house. Tapp identifies the kidnapper was in fact Zepp, the orderly from the hospital, in a flashback that he was experiencing. And in the flashback, we see him and Detective Singh raiding one of Jigsaw's lairs. After discovering an individual that he was torturing and coming in contact with Jigsaw, Singh tries to stop the electrocution of the individual, and Tapp gets distracted by Jigsaw's shooting in an attempt to dismantle the apparatus. Jigsaw pulls out a blade and then slits Tapp's throat, but he fails to kill him. Singh follows Jigsaw, only to find himself getting killed via shotguns due to a trap prepared by the man himself. And as Lawrence and Adam remain detained in the room, Lawrence notices an X spot on the wall, and he breaks it to discover 2 cigarettes and a note. The note warns Lawrence that the cigarettes are harmless, but could be used to kill Adam. Despite the warning, Lawrence dips the cigarette in the dead man's blood, remembering that it was poison. He then gives the cigarettes to Adam, telling him to play along. And Adam pretends to smoke the cigarettes, and then he starts acting like he's dying when the lights come back. However, immediately after the observer electrocutes him to prove that he wasn't really dead, we see another flashback where we discover that Adam actually knew Dr. Lawrence and he had been following him. And in the present, with only 23 minutes left for the deadline, the phone rings and it's Lawrence's wife and daughter who are on the other side. And after speaking with his wife, Lauren confronts Adam and Adam reveals that he was hired by Detective Tapp to follow him. Lawrence discloses that he did not cheat on his wife, but Adam didn't seem to care. Allison and Diana successfully escape from their restraints but remain seated. And at the same time, Zapp enters the room to kill the hostages, but Allison fights back and takes his gun away. During the struggle, Diana makes a sound that distracts Allison, allowing Zapp to retrieve his gun. Shots are fired and Lawrence, who is still on the phone, assumes that his family has been killed. Meanwhile, Detective Tapp bursts into the house and attacks Zapp, helping Allison and Diana escape. As Tapp and Zapp engage in a car chase, their destination is the room where Lawrence and Adam are detained. Lawrence gets electrocuted and loses consciousness, and then he wakes up to have a mental breakdown. And after his breakdown, he decides to cut off his leg. And as Lawrence cuts off his leg, Tapp and Zapp were struggling in the building. And unfortunately, Tapp loses the fight and is killed. And free from captivity, Lawrence crawls to Tapp's dead body and discovers a gun. And then he loads a bullet and shoots Adam. And just then, Zapp enters the room and tells Lawrence that it's too late and aims to shoot him dead. However, Adam, who was not really dead, takes the toilet lid and beats Zapp to death. Following this gruesome scene, Lawrence leaves the room telling Adam that he would come back for him. And Adam finds a tape recorder in Zapp's pockets and realizes that he was being forced to act by the real Jigsaw Killer. And at this point, the dead man in the middle of the room arises, revealing himself to be Jigsaw. Jigsaw being the same man who is John, who was Dr. Lawrence's patient from the hospital. John tells Adam that he can set himself free using the key in the bathtub, the glowing object that had been sucked in the beginning of the movie. And Adam realizes that the key is not in the bathtub, and in anger, attempts to kill Jigsaw. However, he gets electrocuted again and he falls to the ground. And the movie ends with John, aka Jigsaw, turning off the lights and shutting the door closed, and he says, with the now very legendary line, "Game over." It's a pretty great movie. I really enjoyed the first part. I hope you guys liked our recap. Remember to leave a like, comment, subscribe to my channel. I will see you guys on the next recap. Bye.